like how Louisville has a guy named the Asian.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the SNS podcast. This is episode 3. This is going to be the ACC 2017 preview. If you guys haven't seen episodes 1 and 2, episode 1 is the Pac-12 / Big 12 preview, and episode 2 was the SEC preview. And I think we did a lot of agreeing in those, but I think we gave a lot of good analysis and gave our winners for each division, for the actual conference itself, some surprise teams, maybe some overrated teams, discussed Hugh Freeze and his escort service, which was kind of a interesting little topic. So check out episode 2 if you guys haven't seen that. But yeah, we're jumping into the ACC, the conference that has the reigning national champion in it. And a conference, honestly, that I think until the last couple years has been quite poor compared to the other Power 5 conferences. Now the Big 12 has been right there.
Maybe underperforming.
Yeah, I would say that. And because I think Florida State, I think the word Clemsoning was an actual thing, but Clemson's been very good in big games as of recent. One of the best teams in the biggest games. And
before Florida State was back and then won a national title, you had Clemson, who was just seen as a team that could never win big games. Florida State was down. Miami was down.
Right.
So the big programs,
Louisville didn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they didn't have the big names. So
right. It's definitely a conference though that of recent you have some coaches in the conference, you have some analysts, people in the media that are saying that this conference might actually be the best conference right now. And
I think it was last year.
Yeah, and last year I do think it was. I think it's hard to argue against that. I think you have your SEC homers that will argue it. You have really anybody that's a fan of any team in whatever conference, they'll argue their conference. Now, people in the Big 12, you can't argue it, so don't try. But the other conferences, Pac-12 could say they had a lot of strong teams. Big 10 could say they had a lot of strong teams with all the, the 3 teams that were vying for one playoff spot last year. But this is an interesting conference again this year, and there's definitely some teams, at least according to a lot, that have a shot of making the playoff and maybe getting to the national title game and winning that. So, Addison, why don't we start with your winners for what division is this we're doing?
Which division's which? I got to figure that out.
Start with the shitty one.
Let's go with we'll start with the Coastal.
That's it.
That's going to contain Miami, Virginia Tech, Pitt, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Duke, and Virginia. So definitely the lesser of the 2 divisions. You have the Atlantic and the Coastal. Why don't you give your winner for the Coastal? Maybe a surprise team.
Yeah.
It's an interesting division because I think it's a lot of mediocrity. I think we would say.
You said it right there with interesting. I think it's always an interesting division. ESPN's kind of joked about it before, they have the ACC Wheel of Destiny where they just spin it. You never know who's going to win this division. Right. It could be anyone.
Right.
And this year is, to me, I think I might disagree with people. I don't have Miami running away with this division at all. And here's the thing about this division also is all the teams that have a pulse in this division are breaking in a new quarterback this year. The only teams I feel are just completely out of it are Duke and Virginia. Yeah. Everyone else, I wouldn't really be that surprised if they won it. So you got Georgia Tech,
Pitt,
North
Carolina.
Pitt, North Carolina. Yeah. North Carolina of the other 5 is the least likely.
Yeah, they lost a lot. They're in bad shape.
And the thing about Georgia Tech, too, is I think they overperformed last year. They won some games they probably shouldn't. Yeah. They had a really good year at 9-4, and I never knock, people for getting wins, but
they definitely got lucky to win that game. They should have won.
They're going to come back down this year.
Yeah. Let's just call it as we see it. They should have. Yeah. They were good enough to win 6 or 7, really. But
all these teams, I feel like have flaws. So there's no team that stands head and shoulders above anyone else to me. I am going with Miami to finally break through and win a division in the ACC, which they haven't done since joining the conference, which has been a surprise to everyone. If you said that back then, and very shocking. Miami defensively, I'll start there. I think I think they're very good on D, especially in the front seven. Last year they started 3 freshman linebackers. Obviously, they've got all those guys back. There's a lot of talent there. Offensively, they lost Kaya, so I don't really know what they've got at the quarterback position. They bring back their leading rusher from last year and their leading receiver. But there's not the top 2 teams in the division in my eyes, Miami and Virginia Tech, who I have second, both new quarterbacks, obviously, and not a lot of proven players on offense, but I think they both have really good defenses. So that's kind of how I see this division.
Okay. I know you said that maybe amongst like the top 4, you think any of those teams could win the division. Do you think Miami is a national title contender?
No, I don't see anyone in this division.
What the fuck would you even ask that question?
Because I'm hosting, I'm trying to make it interesting. I don't think they are either. So
I think anybody who knows anything about college football knows that
they have no shot, right?
Maybe if Brad Kaya came back, they could have been considered top 15, top 10 team.
They might have been top 10 going into the year if he came back.
Right.
I don't think with him they even were either, so whatever.
But
I'll just ask it.
My surprise team, I said, I think, it's a pretty balanced. It's probably the most balanced division
with mediocrity.
But in terms of parity.
Let me ask you this.
Did I say the team? I said Pitt's my surprise team.
Okay, so Pitt's your surprise team. Do you think? So you have Miami winning the Coastal.
Yeah.
Do you think Miami could beat Florida? I mean, okay, I understand. Like we're talking about a 1-game scenario, but do you think Miami's like a legit competitor against Florida State or Clemson in an ACC title game?
Well, the thing about Miami going head-to-head with Florida State, it is a rivalry.
Okay.
And the last 3 years, the game has been really close. Miami could have won any of the 3 games, so I'll give them that.
Do you think...
I don't see them as...
What about Virginia Tech? Can they play with Clemson and Florida State in that game? Virginia Tech played Clemson pretty damn well in the title game last year.
Yeah. I'm not seeing it this year.
They're not scoring enough points.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though Fuente is an offensive guy, I
think so. Corey from Denver, the 4th member of our podcast, is a Virginia Tech alum and fan. I think we'll try to get him on the phone here possibly while Steele gives his picks, I would say. So maybe try to get in contact with him somehow and see if he wants to get on.
Give him the heads up.
Steele, why don't you go ahead with your Coastal winner? If you have any surprise teams, anybody that you just want to make fun of, I really don't care at this point.
So the power balance in the ACC is pretty comical between the Atlantic Division and Coastal.
It's a joke.
You've got Florida State, Clemson, and Louisville in the Atlantic. Louisville obviously not being a perennial powerhouse, at least for too many years.
Right.
Clemson and Florida State, obviously, recently with Clemson and Florida State coming back. But the power division between the two conferences or divisions is pretty hilarious.
Right.
Like Addison said, ESPN does the Wheel of Destiny of who the hell knows who's going to win the Coastal.
Sure.
Pittsburgh, actually, it's funny that Addison mentions them as a surprise team, doesn't draw any one of those 3 teams from the Atlantic.
That's big for them,
But could start the year 1-3 because they also play Oklahoma State,
and
Penn State,
right.
and another team that I can't remember that they might lose to. So they might start the season off so poorly that they're going to be reeling to, be in competition for the top spot in the Coastal. Virginia Tech. Fuente did, I think, exceed expectations last year. Offensive-minded guy, but does lose a lot on that offense. Cam Phillips comes back, which I'm sure Corey will talk about because he loves his boy Cam.
Good receiver.
But losing, the quarterback, the other receivers, and the other playmakers, their defense is going to be pretty competitive, especially in the linebacker core as well as the secondary. Curious to see how the D-line steps up if they do.
Sure.
Bud Foster, as from previous podcasts, I'm a big fan of Bud and what he's done there in his tenure during the Frank Beamer years. But I think this is Mark Richt's, second year at Miami, and even without Brad Kaya, I think they've got enough pieces to place around a new quarterback to win the mediocre Coastal. I think you have a fall off of North Carolina. I think Georgia Tech is what you would consider my surprise team. I think we all have an appreciation for the offense that Paul Johnson runs.
Yeah, it's hard to prepare for each week.
Right, for the triple option. So, middle of the year, they can catch a lot of people. So I think you see them win a game or two more than anticipated between than people are projecting. So if you go over the breakdown, I've got Miami, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and Pittsburgh kind of vying for that third spot in the Coastal. Although I think we all agree is pretty irrelevant because I think you have Florida State, Clemson, and maybe Louisville competing in the Atlantic to crush whoever.
Do you think? Okay, so I was gonna ask you guys this then. So let's say like Louisville is like your third team in the Atlantic. Are they? If let's say we switch them with like Duke, is Louisville the runaway like preseason choice for the Coastal?
Yeah, I wouldn't say runaway. With Lamar Jackson coming back, Bobby Petrino, pretty productive offensive mind, and he's actually losing Todd Grantham, his defensive coordinator, who put together a pretty good couple of defenses there back-to-back years at Louisville. He's gone. I can't remember where he went, but he's off the map.
Yeah.
To answer your question, if they flipped to the Coastal, I think they would have been the favorite, specifically this year, based with Lamar Jackson.
They'd be one of the top two for sure, in my opinion.
Right. So is Corey on?
We'll go ahead and get him on.
Corey is.
So I guess to recap, these guys clearly think that conference is kind of muddled and mediocre. We'll see what Corey has to say.
Corey.
Hey there.
All right, guys. So
how's it going? We just covered the Coastal Division.
I think we all have the U winning the Coastal, Corey.
Well, I haven't picked yet, so let's kind of pump the brakes for a minute here, but that might be the case as well. But yeah, Corey, these two guys gave their Coastal winner. They both have the U winning. I believe they have your Hokies placed second in the division. Steele has Georgia Tech as possibly his surprise team that could sneak up there and take it. Addison has Pitt. I think we all agree that Duke and Virginia are probably out of it this year. But let's get the guy who probably knows the most about the ACC. Let's get his take on his own division here.
Well, first, I'd like to say you guys are real original with the Miami pick.
I wanted to pick someone else, Corey.
There's no one else.
Nobody else.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I'm sure they probably have the most talented team from just a recruiting standpoint and all that. But, I mean, until they've actually done it, I don't know how anyone can actually, pick them. They've been in the ACC after conference expansion when we've actually had two divisions, and they have never won the Coastal, which is not, the most devastatingly difficult division in college football.
The Wheel of Destiny, yeah.
They've never won it. So until they do it, I can't put myself to root for them, or not root for them, but pick them. So
fair enough. Who's your winner then? You got your Hokies?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's going to come down to that game. They both. So I think.
Where's the site of that?
It's at the U.
It's at the U, which is not
Homecoming.
really a big home field advantage type of situation.
Yeah,
True,
not at
true.
all. Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to have a huge effect. I think both teams. So Virginia Tech has Clemson coming in. The cross division games are really what you have to look at, I think. And Virginia Tech has Clemson coming to Virginia Tech, but I think Miami goes to Florida State.
That's correct.
Yeah, but either way, if you assume losses in both those games, it's going to likely come down to the winner of the Virginia Tech Miami head-to-head.
Yeah, and it's going to be pretty much a coin flip. I can't really argue with that.
Corey, if you
that could be the crazy game.
Yeah, outside of those top two teams, do you have a team that you think legitimately could win that division?
I think Steele's Georgia Tech pick has got to be the one, just because it doesn't matter really how they recruit. I think Pitt loses too much. Their defense was so bad last year.
Yeah, they were pretty bad. I gotta say that.
And also, let's point out that their head coach is like a defensive-minded coach, and he also sucks at coaching football. So, if you pick Pitt, Addison, then you probably have made a mistake somewhat. So.
Yeah, and they lost Canada.
Yeah, so Addison he might be rethinking his surprise team as we speak.
What if Max Brown actually somehow lives up to his, number one recruit hype?
Wait, is
As
he
a-
actually like a good recruit?
He
he was like-
number one quarterback.
Oh,
Yeah.
from USC?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
shit, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he probably sucks because he plays for Pitt now.
It's true.
And they don't have Matt Canada, our guy.
It's true.
Okay, so, all right, so Corey's got his Hokies,
Yep.
and then he's got Georgia Tech as a surprise team. I think that I literally could flip a coin. I think I'll go with the U. I really do like their front seven a lot, and not that I don't like Virginia Tech's defense, but I think that having that game at home is going to just kind of be the tiebreaker for me. I certainly think that things could get interesting if Miami does drop a random ACC game to where hang on, they play at Pitt their last game of the season on a Friday night, and that could be a dicey situation for them to where, like, let's say they're leading the division at that point, and then all of a sudden Virginia Tech or whoever jumps ahead of them because Pitt wins that game or something. As much as we're making fun of Pitt, I think that
Let's just not overlook their road game to Arkansas State week 2.
the Red Wolves.
Red Wolves.
I mean, it's not a conference game, but it's certainly a game that could shatter their confidence for the rest
How
of
about
the year.
how about
think
Toledo? They
That's
played
true.
the Rockets.
Hey, in Toledo, and
Okay.
look, we don't do a MAC preview, but we do like some MACtion on the SNS podcast. And Toledo, I believe, is picked by Uncle Phil to be quite good this year, from what I recall. I think that's actually a solid team.
That's
So,
the MAC favorite.
look, Corey, he made a good point, and I think as we talked about, if you guys didn't see the SEC episode where we said that until somebody removes Alabama from the top spot in the West, why would we pick anybody else? And Corey makes a good point. Well, why would we pick Miami when they haven't won in 13 years? But apparently us three don't give a shit about that, and we're
Yeah.
picking Miami. So
Corey, what about the Atlantic?
Well, that's an interesting one. So first off, I don't know why people continue to put Louisville up in this discussion. I'm a big seller of Louisville. Watching them get absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage, both by LSU in the bowl game last year and by Houston,
yeah,
and losing to Kentucky. I mean, the way they came down the stretch last year, I think was a little bit more indicative of the team they really are. Than the thrashing they put on Florida State earlier in the year.
right.
But
We should pose you this question, Corey. Right before you came on, Nick asked the question: what if Louisville was in the other division? Where would you put them?
See, that's interesting because I think the strength of both teams in the Virginia Tech and Miami, the two probably top favorites of that division, I think would do things to Louisville that basically screw them over. I mean, you're looking at least Miami for sure, and Virginia Tech's at least starting 11 would do it. Their front seven would I think just decimate them. And Lamar Jackson can run around all he wants, but at the end of the day, he can only do so much. And I don't know. I don't think that they would fare a whole lot better. I think that they would have a better. I mean, Florida State and Clemson are obviously They're better than Miami and Virginia Tech, but I don't think Louisville would be like a surefire lock if they were in the other division. Just because the two teams in that division that are probably the best would do things to Louisville that they have trouble with.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Louisville definitely is lacking on the line again this year. I think that, I don't know if I saw that it was either offense or overall as a team, they only returned like 4 starters. I guess
4 on offense.
Yeah, I'll go after Corey, and then I'll let you guys go. Corey, who do you have actually winning the Atlantic? And then why don't you go ahead and give your ACC winner overall?
I'm gonna be the very unoriginal guy too. Take Florida State out of the Atlantic, and I think the whoever wins the Atlantic is gonna win the whole conference.
Yeah.
So I'll take Florida State overall.
Okay. Do you have, if you don't like Louisville, what about NC State? Do you think that's a team that could they actually win that division, or do you think that's just like a popular kind of team that you think could finish like second or third? What do you think about them?
I'm jumping on the bandwagon. The only thing, I think they have as good a defense as anyone in that conference, especially up front. I think that they will do things to Louisville that Houston did to Louisville, that LSU did to Louisville. I honestly think that Louisville could finish fourth in that division. But the big question mark, obviously, is the other side of the ball. They have a returning quarterback who, I don't know, he's fine, but he's nothing to be, he's, whatever. And then they have Jalen Samuels, who's like this guy who does everything. But outside of that, I'm not too enthusiastic about any other threats on offense. So I think that their defense will keep them in a lot of games if they can somehow manage to make field goals. Maybe they knock off a Clemson or a team,
You mean like almost like last year?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, if they could do that, then it's a whole different ball game. But
yeah,
I just don't know if they have they have so many question marks where they could drop a game to a lesser team, but beat a better team. If that makes any sense.
Sure. Yeah. I think that the Atlantic's pretty interesting as far as like I guess those top two. I'm actually going to go with Clemson, and I think the thing with them is like I wonder about teams coming off like winning national titles and like the whole complacency thing. But I think with Dabo, he does a really good job as far as like being one of the better motivators. I really like Clemson on both lines, and we talked about Louisville's lack of presence on the line. I think that's where Clemson is potentially the best in the conference on maybe both. Florida State's certainly up there, and I think you can argue a couple of the other teams, but I definitely think that Clemson's recruited, obviously very well, and I like them in that pivotal game against Florida State later in the year. But
where's that at?
I believe it's
at Clemson.
I believe it's home, so I like Clemson in that game. But certainly, I wouldn't be shocked if Florida State won the division in the conference or like the national title. I think that those two teams are legitimate national title contenders without question.
Francois' growth is going to be
pretty
indicative
right.
in terms of their success.
And as far as Clemson goes, that's the same thing. Like, who even is the damn quarterback? Kelly Bryant or something? Yeah, his growth. It's the same thing with him. Like, if Clemson can get solid quarterback play earlier or later, then they're certainly going to be right back in the hunt to defend their title. Now, where I'm with Corey 100%, and this is the first time in a long time that I have like really disagreed with Uncle Phil, Phil Steele. We have his magazine you guys can see in the pod here. I think he claimed that Louisville being a contender in that division is a national title contender, and that is like literally the farthest thing from the truth in my opinion. Like, I think teams like Clemson, Florida State, Ohio State, Alabama, they would absolutely own Louisville on both lines. And, I think that anybody that knows football...
Just put Louisville in the Big 12, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, like, if you have a wild card like Lamar Jackson, obviously you can win games, but I think that as far as, like, that might be, like, a 1 or 2 out of, like, 10 type of thing, I really think they will really struggle with really physical teams on the line. So I really don't like Louisville. They are my vastly overrated team in that division. I also agree with Corey, though. I do like NC State as a team that I'm not sure NC State has the chops to win that division, but I think that at the end of the year, if they somehow finished like third or maybe even second somehow, I wouldn't be super shocked by that. But I do think that is a team to watch out for as far as their talent on defense and being able to basically compete with Clemson and Florida State. So, Steele, why don't we go to you in the Atlantic? Your winner, your surprise teams. You gonna throw anything out there to stir the pot?
No stirring really. Unoriginal Florida State pick. I'm curious to see Cam Akers play. Yeah. I think he's probably one of the top like 5 players in terms of hype from my personal experience of just following like high school recruiting.
He was the guy that I really wanted Ohio State to get.
I think like AJ Green, and who am I thinking of? The other Bama receiver,
Julio Jones,
right? Like that type of hype where it's like can't miss prospect, where they lost Dalvin Cook to the NFL and nobody even cares because of how good this kid's going to be. So not really a team to look out for, but more of a player who's on the projected number 1 team in the Atlantic for most preseason predictors or magazines. NC State, I think, has a good overall squad. Is it enough to win the Atlantic? No. in my opinion. Kind of with Corey on the Louisville regression. I think they show their true colors when they play elite opponents. Clemson, obviously, very capable of winning it, but it's going to be proven on the quarterback play, which I think Florida State has a little bit more of a known commodity in Francois there. But obviously, a more of a 60-40 type split, in my opinion, on who's going to win the Atlantic, Florida State to Clemson there. Watch out for Syracuse, though. I know that they can come up and bite a team or two, as Corey knows firsthand. Right, Corey?
Rough.
It's a sneaky squad.
Sneaky squad.
It's always weird playing in the dome, right?
Yeah, Carrier Dome throws them off.
Actually, there's a sneaky team. I'm not gonna lie, they probably won't have more than 7 wins. But Dino and Eric Dungy, they've got. I know they lost Editawo or whatever, the really marquee wide receiver. He's gone, but they have their secondary receiver was really good. His name is escaping me right now. But don't sleep on Dino knocking off a couple, maybe throwing in some big wins here this year. But then also,
are you talking about Steve Ishmael?
Or Jamal Curtis.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the guy.
That's the guy.
I had my IT team on it, so yeah, we're on that.
Especially when Syracuse wears all orange. That's got to be hard to play against.
They do catch Clemson at home. Oh, they go to LSU. Jesus Christ.
Central Connecticut State.
They play at Miami, at NC State, at Florida State. They're going to lose all those games by
they play at
180 points.
At Louisville, too.
Yeah, they're going to lose all those games.
So Corey's calling for one of those possibly to be an upset,
No.
I think.
No, one at the Carrier Dome.
One out.
Is there
Clemson.
potential upset at the Carrier Dome?
Pitt. They play Pitt.
Clemson at the Carrier
Yeah, they play
Dome.
Clemson on a Friday night in the Carrier Dome. Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Wow, that's fishy.
What? Yeah, that is fishy. Oh, man, I don't know.
Scary stuff.
Interesting. Okay, so Steele's got Florida State. Corey's got Florida State. I have Clemson. Addison, give us somebody different than those two teams.
Sorry. I can't. I'm going to go with Florida State. We all agree that this is pretty close at the top between the two. Actually, initially I thought that it was going to be Florida State by a lot. Just because initially I thought Clemson lost a little bit too much, but the more I read about Clemson, the more, I still believe that even with their losses like Watson and everyone else, they've still got enough talent to not only win this division and the conference, but be a national title contender as well. It depends on the quarterback play. If they can just get solid play out of that, then, they're going to have an elite D line. They lost a bunch of receivers, but they were so deep at receiver last year, they've still got, good players there.
For sure.
But I've still got Florida State winning the division. I love their defense. Absolutely loaded secondary. Derwin James coming back this year. Missed pretty much all of last year with injury. Going to be one of the best players going into the draft. So I got Florida State. And Louisville, Corey was mentioning, I'm actually selling Louisville stock as well. I feel like they have to completely reprove themselves with the way they finished last year, going from 50 points a game to at the end of the year they were only scoring not even 20 points a game.
And to add to that real quick, think about it this way. With how Lamar Jackson plays, Louisville is potentially a high ankle sprain away from being like Syracuse. Are they not? How do we argue against them potentially being really poor without Lamar Jackson? So, continue your point. But I think they're definitely going to be down.
Yeah.
Corey, as it projects to the national scale and championship, any chance you see the Coastal winner competing for a title? Or 0% chance?
No, I certainly think so. I do have Miami's out of conference schedule, so.
By that you mean Miami sneaks by Florida State and or Clemson in the ACC, and I think we all agree that the ACC winner will most likely be in, barring a weird 2 or 3 loss scenario where it's or 4 loss Virginia Tech team or something. Or are you saying that they're possibly on the level of competing in a 2-game scenario in the playoffs with like an USC, Ohio State, Bama.
You mean getting there and competing?
We mean
right.
We so in each episode we have what we kind of do is wrap it up and say, okay, how many of these teams legitimately can win the national title?
Yeah.
That's what we're asking you.
Which teams can get to the playoff and not get shut out?
Well.
You put that one on a tee, dude. Like that's what's coming now, right?
We all thought that team was pretty good last year. They got shut out.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I honestly think that at least the way the schedule sets up, I think Miami or Virginia Tech, whoever comes out of that and plays in the ACC title game, they have a favorable enough schedule otherwise to maybe make it to that ACC title game with one loss, maybe two. And if they get through the ACC title game with 1 or 2 losses, they would probably be in the mix. I guess once you get to that 4 game, I don't see Miami or Virginia Tech competing with an Alabama, even an Ohio State, or
USC.
Like Penn State or whoever, right?
Yeah,
I don't think we can win it.
Yeah, that's the point we've been making each pod is getting there and actually competing in a 2-game set is vastly different.
Yeah, because I think when we did the Pac-12 and Big 12 preview in episode 1, we had one team unanimously that could win the national title, and that was USC. None of us thought Oklahoma could. Well, first of all, the Big 12 would have to make the playoff, which they've proven that it's going to be quite difficult to do with how the national perception is of that conference.
None of us even saw them getting there. I still like. I was talking up Washington. I still like Washington.
Okay, so yeah, Addison did think Washington is possibly
that was not a unanimous pick.
Steele and I immediately shut that down. We don't think that's the case, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, I guess, by it. But
so wrapping ACC, I think.
Back to ACC.
Are we all 2 teams, Clemson and Florida State, on the national?
Yeah, both of them for sure.
Oh, I think both those teams are legitimate national title contenders. And you 3 obviously have Florida State
and nobody's
winning
willing
division. I have Clemson. I think it's fine either way.
And nobody's willing to add Louisville to that mix.
I think Louisville finishes like 5th in division. Yeah. I don't think that they're that good. I think they're honestly like an ankle sprain away from being last in that division.
Yeah. NC State is an interesting team in that division just because now I don't think they have close to the talent of either Clemson or Florida State, but they almost beat both those teams last year.
Certainly, yeah.
So, but then at the same time, they were a bipolar team where they lost to East Carolina, who Corey knows is a tough team anyway.
Not anymore.
Over that hump.
They also lost to BC, and I mean it's like they just got to be more consistent, and they're going to have a great D. They're a very experienced team this year. So it'd be interesting to see what the Wolfpack looks like.
All right, so I guess that pretty much wraps up the ACC preview. I think just to recap, we all think Florida State and Clemson are legitimate national title contenders. We've got 3 votes for Florida State to win the conference, 1 vote for Clemson, and we've got some possible surprise teams that can win either division, but we don't think those are certainly teams that, at least on paper right now, can win the national title. So. If you guys haven't checked out episode 1, like I said, which is the Pac-12 and Big 12 preview, go ahead and check that out. And then episode 2 is the SEC preview. That was a pretty entertaining one, I think. The next episode is, I believe, going to be the Big 10 preview. And then I'm not really sure if we'll have much else in there. I think it might just be like the Big 10 preview.
We have to add Notre Dame.
Oh, certainly. I forgot.
There was no mention of Notre Dame, who is
who's pretty much associated with the SEC. Okay, so in the next episode we'll cover Big 10 Notre Dame, which is the conference that Notre Dame probably should have been in.
Were we talking about the other, lumping all the other conferences together?
I think what's going to happen with the schedule is us 3 here that you guys can visually see are going to be visiting Corey from Denver in Denver.
You're going to be able to see Corey.
We're going to
see what he looks like.
We're going to, at least on schedule, we're going to have we have a scheduled podcast live from Denver, and we will preview not only kind of like week 0, we call it, like the first few college football games that are that weekend, but actual week 1. We'll get into some sports betting. We'll discuss week 1. I think during that podcast, we will give our playoff predictions, and then we'll give a national title prediction as well. But I think leading up to that point, we have enough time to where the next 2 episodes, off the top of my head, will be the Big Ten / Notre Dame preview, and then we could do definitely a preview of like the rest of the conferences, maybe our best non-Power 5 teams that could spoil the dance, maybe make the playoff. Maybe we'll throw in some bold predictions about one of those teams. So Heisman contenders, stuff like that.
We could talk about Mayweather McGregor in the
Hey, look,
Denver one.
there's no rules or restrictions to this podcast. We literally can do whatever the fuck we want. So, yeah, but this will be it for the ACC preview. So tune in for the Big Ten Notre Dame preview in the next episode.